please bear that in mind, you people starting. Not every book, you've got to find your audience. I have some of my audience, but I'm sure there are more people out there. So that's why I'm here talking to you. We're trying to find more people out there who will come and say, "Oh yeah, I get this," and we'll be willing to take a ride with me.
Everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter, author podcast. You know it, you love it, because you get to meet great authors like Rich, who's on the show today. I'm excited to have him here, and we're going to talk about his journey as an author. He's got lots and lots to share. You're going to love this gentleman, and you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to be able to fill your library with a bunch of great books from a great author. Rich is here. Rich, welcome to Living the Next Chapter. Glad to have you on the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Excellent. Rich, I already know the answer to this question, but my audience doesn't. Where are you in this big world of ours?
I'm just south of Boston.
Beautiful.
My wife keeps saying we're about 7 miles south of the city, which is a city unto itself called Quincy. That's with a Z. It's not spelled with a Z, but that's how the English pronounce it, Quincy. Just like you don't pronounce Worcester the way it's spelled.
Yeah.
At least you don't if you read Shakespeare, which I have.
So we would replace that Z with a Z up here in Canada, right? So
actually, a lot of people say other parts of the country use a soft C, so it's Quincy.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
And that's not actually the intent. I don't know how the Z got in there, but that's just my understanding, and I'm not going to fight the locals here.
No, don't start a fight. No, that's not a good thing to do.
No, we've got enough fighting as it is.
Yeah, but that's good. Okay, so we have lots of authors who listen to the show, Rich, and they're here looking for inspiration from a fellow author, someone further down the path, like you. Yep. There's things that that could really help somebody just kind of new to writing, just starting out, and encourage them. So if you could have time, a coffee with somebody, and just share your insights and some recommendations for a new author, anything come to mind in the moment that you'd like to share to encourage them?
Well, I think the first thing I'd find out is where they are in their journey, because the person who's just starting out and the person who sort of is a little bit farther down the path, maybe a step or two, it's a little different because things change quickly. So if you're really just totally lost, then my recommendation is be sure you're reading a lot and you're writing a lot. Get a notebook, do some free writing regularly, get in the habit of writing regularly. I don't say daily because a lot of people can't commit to that, but regularly, every other day, once a week, something, just to get into the discipline of putting thoughts on paper. And it doesn't have to be on paper. You can, if you prefer to sit at your keyboard and type into a blog or dictate into your phone app, your journal phone app, which is now available, or whatever it is, just keep a log of your thoughts, feeling something, or whatever comes to mind. If you're a little bit farther along, then it's a question of, well, do you have an idea for a story? What is it? What genre? We have other questions to ask. Have you read in that genre? Have you read widely enough in that genre? You know what the tropes are so that you know what's expected, what you might want to try to change or violate, knowing that you are bucking a trend here. And maybe that's intentional because you want your stuff to be new and different, and see if people are willing to accept whatever you want to change. And it could be wildly successful, or it could crash and burn. Who knows? Yeah, everybody's different. I've met all kinds of readers. Some are really eclectic and they'll read anything, and I love those people because they'll read anything. And others are very specific. They're only on one track. They only read urban fantasy set in a particular period of time, on Thursdays with the blue moon or something. It's really specific. And I'm going, all right, well, I'm not sure I can help those people, but so it really will depend on where they are on their journey. And if they're even farther along and they even have a draft, but they're not quite sure what to do, that's a whole other different conversation, because now you're talking about revising, editing, spell checking, grammar, all the things that may go into getting the thing pristine so it can go out the door and, have its own life.
Any benefits, Rich, from reading outside of your genre as an author? So if you're into sci-fi, reading something completely different? Okay.
So here's the thing. So I'm a fantasy author. I write mostly medieval fantasy. In order to do that and have the medieval part authentic, I have to read history
Yes.
in a great deal. I have to know about history. I have to know about heraldry because I reflect that. I have to know about the weapons and armor of the period, right? So there's all that, all that. I have to think about how magic might work, which is more reading in the genre, but or I can just go off. I can get in my little off-road vehicle here and just go tooling over the countryside to see what new things I can come up with. And I have to know about the economic systems of the period,
Yeah.
as well. So there's a ton of stuff that's true, and that's true in other genres too. If I'm writing science fiction, then you really have to understand how technology works, how science works, because even though you might make up something that's or accept what is pretty standard and accepted, like a warp drive or a jump drive or a hyperspace or whatever, which
Yeah.
technically we don't know how to actually make work currently with current technology. Other technology should work along scientific principles, in my opinion. When I write science fiction, I try to be as scientifically accurate as possible within certain constraints. If I'm doing space opera, then I fudge, I get my thumb in there and I smudge a few lines here and there. But if I'm not,
Yeah.
and I have things that are more closer to science, then I make sure my science. In fact, that's how I came up with several ideas of for stories. I said, look, if you could create a telescope that could actually capture the light from another planet and turn it and sort of like display it the way television works, you'd be able to see pictures. You wouldn't have the sound because sound takes longer to travel and it doesn't travel through space anyway because it's a vacuum.
Yeah.
Sound requires air, an atmosphere. It's the bumping of molecules that sends the sound wave across space.
And there's the science right there, by the way.
Here's the
There's
science
the
right
science
there.
right there. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, yeah,
Well
yeah.
done. Well done. Well done.
But you'd be able to see the pictures, and so I came up with this idea for a telescope vision kind of device where that's exactly what the guy does. He creates a telescope that's like television, hence the title of the story,
Yeah.
that lets him see the future because he's looking at a planet that's more or less a mirror of Earth, but it's ahead by some amount of time, allowing for all of the light years to pass between for the light to travel from here to there. But what he
Yeah.
sees is only a few months ahead of what's actually happening here on Earth, which gets him into trouble. Which I'm not going to spoil the story
Yeah.
for those of you
Yeah.
who may want to read it. But that's how I came up with it. Is I just to think about certain scientific principles and apply them, and a lot of stories are like that. Bradbury's Sound of Thunder, which I love, when the guy falls off the path and kills the butterfly, it changes the course of history. There
Right.
you go. That's a famous one.
Yeah.
But that makes sense because there's a ripple effect. That's why when they go back in time, they're on that ribbon that doesn't change anything. Is because if you change something, there's a ripple effect. We just
Yeah.
don't know what it's going to be.
Right.
Now that assumes time travel works, okay? Which you have to suspend your disbelief. If you're adhering to a strict scientific principle, time travel is probably not possible. Is my guess. That's my guess, but who knows? Apparently, I just read a post the other day that for the first time, scientists were able to take light and create matter from it, confirming Einstein's theory of equation of E equals mc squared. And I'm going, geez, that's the basic principle of a Star Trek transporter and a replicator is that you
Yeah.
take energy and turn it into matter. Okay, now they've probably done that on a very small scale, and it probably isn't going to be commercially available anytime soon. But if they figured out how to do that, that's a huge step forward towards something that I would very much like to see. I love to see a replicator.
Or just buy a DeLorean and then you're good to go.
Oh, just
Right?
buy a DeLorean.
Right. Exactly. Okay.
Exactly.
What about Rich? What about for authors trying to find their voice as an author? Like it's one thing to start writing and share your thoughts and capture the stuff in the moment, but crafting your own voice as an author, finding what makes you uniquely you as a
Yeah.
writer. Any thoughts around that?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time on that one because everything I was writing, I said, no, this tone doesn't sound quite right for what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Now, at the time, I was doing my epic fantasy, and to do that, and to finally find that voice, I had to read in the genre. I was looking for a voice that already existed by published authors that maybe I could mimic at
Yeah.
least to get started.
Right.
And eventually I found it in The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan, which is, now up to which he died at book 11 before he could finish it, and Brendan Saracen finished it in the three, so that's 14 books. It was Jordan planned it to be 18, but the unfinished part was condensed into three because that was the best that could be done. I'm sure if Jordan had lived, he would have taken what's in those three books would have expanded and added and changed, because that's what happens in the process of writing all the time. It happens to me all the time.
Yeah.
So that I'm very close to the end of the book, trying to finish the book. It just won't end. I can't kill this thing.
Yeah.
Because I have so much stuff I have to cover and I want to do a good job and all this stuff. But Sanderson didn't know any better. He just had the notes he had from conversations with Jordan as he lay dying, and so that's what it was. But the early books in that series have a very specific tone. It's Jordan's tone, and I started by mimicking that, and then it lapsed into what you find now in my series, and that just became the tone of that series, and pretty much of most of the epic fantasy I write for that part of my fantasy world. I have a different fantasy series where the tone is much lighter and is a little different, and I try to be lighter explicitly because I'm going, okay, this isn't going to be an epic. This is just going to be a light adventure. So I'm going to change things a little bit. That's all. It will help after you get with one book done. You'll see what works and what doesn't work, and it'll get easier as you go. But to start, I would read widely and pay attention to the tone and see what tones you like and see what you might want to replicate or emulate. That's okay to start. Eventually, you'll make it your own.
I love that you say mimic. That's great, because I think some people think that you have to start with a blank piece of paper and you have to be so unique that you don't have any outside influences. It's all about you, what you can create. And then that's when they get stuck, is they're trying to be so unique, right?
Yeah. One of the biggest lessons I learned, and I learned this in one of my writing classes, is what they don't tell you when you read all of this literature in English classes, is that none of this stuff came out of these people perfectly formed, complete as you see it. It went through many drafts. And this was brought home to me when we took a look at markup of a draft from, I think it was Mark Twain, of one of his short stories, or maybe it was one of his novels, or a chapter from one of his novels. I forget. But you see all the markup because they have drafts that he edited of his own work. And you can see all the lines and all of the crossouts and all of the things written between lines and all of which is what I used to do, back when I started writing, and this is before computers, so I had to use a typewriter. My drafts were littered with all kinds of things I wanted to change because I would type it, I would read it, I would see the typos, I would see the mistakes, I would think, I'd figure out what more to add in a particular paragraph, and I had to figure out a way to capture all of that because I didn't have enough room. And so, of course, when the invention of the word processor came to be and became affordable, I was praising God, going, okay, my prayers have been answered. This is much better. This is much better, because the draft is what it is, and then every time I sit down and I make changes, it changes. I'm doing that now to a book I just started. I've written about 7,000 words. I've got about 5 chapters, but I wrote it in such a piecemeal, haphazard way. I said, look, I know I'm not supposed to do this. I'm supposed to write the first draft and then go back. That's what I tell everybody.
Yeah.
One of my biggest pieces of advice. But I'm going, look, I'm not sure that any of this stuff holds water. I'm sure there's more of information in there that I need to wring out. I'm going back and reading it again for consistency and adding and developing and doing all of that stuff just for this section before I move on. And so that's what I'm doing. And what's going to happen, and it already happened, I started yesterday, as I hit stuff, there are new sentences going in that develop ideas and expand and develop. And I'm guessing these 7,000 words will be closer to maybe 14 before I'm done, or possibly more. And I won't have 5 chapters. I will have maybe 10 chapters. I don't know. What will happen as the word count goes up is I will also look at the organization, and I like to keep my chapters short. That's something that just I do. There's no need to do that. I just prefer to do that, which means I will start breaking this stuff down into into more chapters as I go, as it expands, and I'm going, all right. But I can only do that because I have a word processing application
Yeah.
and computer technology, and that makes it easy for me to do. If I still had to use a typewriter, I don't know how I would do what I do. I really don't.
Yeah. No,
Okay,
yeah.
I really don't. I used to write longhand. I don't do that anymore. I can close it to keyboard. And if I had to go back, I'm going, oh my God, I would really have to think about what I wanted to say before I said it, which I understand a lot of well-known writers, particularly in the 19th century, used to do. They would think about it very carefully, and then you would write or you would rewrite.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where double spacing comes in the first place. Is so there's space on that typed page for you to stick in. Okay. That's only supposed to be for small editing things, not for whole chunks of stuff that you left out that you said, "Oh
Yeah.
my God."
Yeah. Whole new mini story within a
That
story. Yeah.
requires a little asterisk on the page,
Yeah.
and then an asterisk on a separate page that says this is the insert, and then you start writing.
Yeah.
Because when it all gets put together, then you do the literal cutting and pasting, and that's
Yeah.
where we get the term cutting and paste. People used to literally cut and paste because they had to
Yeah.
with scissors and glue and all that stuff to compose pages because that's all you had. That's all you had.
What kind of character are you feel drawn to as a writer when you're writing your stories? Like the character type, you're just like this type of character intrigues me, and what kind of character kind of repels you that show up in your stories?
Well, I like wizards
Yeah.
as a rule because I love magic, and I've done different types of wizards because my first wizard was abused alcohol, and my editor said I'd like to see you write a different kind of wizard. And so what I did with that in mind is that in this the fantasy series I'm working on now, the wizard here doesn't drink, but he's a reverent as hell. If you're thinking of someone like Merlin or Gandalf or someone who's seriously,
Yeah.
no, he is, he's more a magic or wizard meets Southern California kind of, irreverent, easygoing, laid back kind of guy
Okay.
who maybe is thinking out loud occasionally and is a pleasure to talk to or fun to talk to. But in terms of so wizards have a certain spot. I find that as I look at the characters that I've written, bards are also frequent in my stuff. Maybe because I am one in modern day world as I write poetry and I write and I'm like a bard myself, so I identify with that.
Yeah.
But I also have other characters that reflect other parts of my personality. Ultimately, they're all going to reflect some part of my personality, or I can't write them.
Yeah.
I struggle with the ones that require me to sort of dig a little deeper or to show something that I might not be comfortable with. It's hard, for example, for me to write a female character because I sometimes I just don't understand the female outlook, and I have to base the character on a woman that I know and how she reacts to get it to even sound right. And I've done that. In terms of repelling, that's a good question. I don't think I have an answer for that question. I think all characters are welcome because I need them all. I need the good, the bad, the ugly.
Right.
Right? That's what life's like, and that's what.
Yeah.
And my stories, try to reflect reality, such as it is, within certain constraints.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fantasy, but the characters should be real. I try to make the characters as real as possible. So, the bard has a father who doesn't agree with his career choices. The female elf is been fighting with her mother, which is reflective of mother-daughter relationships I've seen in my life. A young teen character who just growing up and is just looking for a path forward because he's sort of like lost the way we all are at 15, going on to 16. These are characters in my fantasy series. This is the way it is. I did that on intentional.
Yeah.
I call it fantasy meets Faulkner sometimes because that's the idea. That's why my wizard character Prashani has trouble with alcohol because that's the character I would expect to see out of a Faulkner novel.
Yeah.
Very much so. He's a good guy, don't get me wrong, and he's able to he managed to crawl out of the bottle finally because his wife is missing. His wife and his young son are missing, and he's been looking for them because he's in love with them, of course, and that's his family. Of course he is. He's just looking for. He figures there's something weird going. And in a fantasy world, you don't assume necessarily that in our world, after some months, you can always kind of assume, well, they'll find them eventually, but they'll be dead because that's the way it tends to play out more and more. But in a fantasy world, anything could have happened. They could have been the victim of some magic spell, and they'll show up years later totally unharmed.
Yeah.
Right? You don't know. So he doesn't give up hope. He just doesn't know. He just doesn't know what happened. So he keeps an eye out. I resolved that ultimately. That's also from my fantasy series. I have resolved it ultimately, but again, I won't tell you how I do that because I'm not going to spoil anything for anybody. I'm just leaving little clues and hints for people to pique their interest.
Yeah, I had an author talk about a character he was writing, and the character really frustrated him.
Yep.
Because it was like the opposite of the way he would do something.
Yes.
And it was almost like it was a chore. Like he was annoyed by his character. Like this character just bothered him. Like if he met him in real life, he probably would do something physical harm to this character. Right? So that kind of annoyance, I guess. And I said to him, like, why would you write that character? He's like, well, we all have these people in our life that they come in the room and the room changes, right? When they walk in, you're like, oh, they're here, right? So, yeah.
Well, that's an interesting point, because the father of the bard that I was talking about earlier, I don't like him. Okay, he's an arrogant idiot who doesn't even listen to his physician about how to deal with his gout. Okay, never mind trying to dictate the behavior of his son to follow in his footsteps. I don't like him, but I wrote him the way I wrote him because that's real. That's based on real people that I know, who the father was trying to dictate the behavior of the son. I've seen that multiple times, to follow in the path that the father thinks is best. Okay, it takes the bard's girlfriend basically to cause a scene for him to sort of like, the father sort of to wake up and realize, oh, he's my son and I should really treat him better. Okay. And part of it is because, and I don't know if this comes through in the story, but part of it is because his wife is dead and he misses her. And his son James reminds him of his missing dead spouse. And so he sort of takes it out on him, even though it's not really his fault. Just the way it is. It happens. Which gets us me to yet another thing that writers need to know, which is psychology.
Okay, yes.
The psychology of people and how people behave is critical so you can write real characters. That's a big one. And I love psychology. I think studying how human behavior is fascinating. I could have been a psychologist, I suspect, if I didn't have such a passion for writing, because I find human behavior fascinating and how people work. And I've taken many psychology courses, mostly social psychology courses, but I think I had a general psychology course in there somewhere in college. It's all very interesting, and knowing how people tick. Okay, You'll get that by reading lots of literature too, because the best writers reflect human behavior. They didn't realize that they were relying on psychology at the time in many cases, because psychology as we understand it didn't exist probably until Sigmund Freud, which is late 19th century.
Yep.
Right. And so I don't think Dickens or Jane Austen or any Victorian writer, it's just sort of like bursting onto the scene that they know that's what it is, but human behavior is better understood than, particularly in Dickens, he's traveling all over London, meeting people and reflecting the characters that he meets in his stories, and so that's why they sort of like pop out of the page the way they do. And that's the other thing, is that read classics.
Yeah,
that's important, because you need to know what the best writers have done.
Right.
You really do. I finally started listening to my own advice on that. I went back and been doing some reading in a work from ancient Greece. Finally caught up on Homer. Finally.
Wow. Nice.
After years of having the books, because I know it was important, I finally got through those. That was worth doing, because the way he tells the story is not the way I would tell a story, because I'm relying on the way writing has evolved over centuries, and Homer has to invent everything from scratch. He can do whatever he wants. There really aren't rules per se, I don't think. Depending on when he was writing, I'm not even sure if, I forget which one it was. It was either Plato or Aristotle who put down the the principles of aesthetics and what art should look like and how writing should be and all that stuff. And I'm not even sure if that existed when Homer was writing the Iliad. And the other thing I have to keep in mind is that the version I'm reading is not in the original Greek. It's been translated, so it loses. I mean, people are trying to
Yeah.
do the best they can, but I saw two different translations, and they read very differently. And I'm going, okay, it's depending. It depends on the translator's understanding of Greek, I suspect, and how they want to phrase it, which is the problem with translations.
Right. Yeah. You lose a little bit of that, right? Yeah.
You're really depending on the translator and his knowledge of the language and
Yeah.
capturing the essence of what did the writer really mean. I've
Yeah.
always had that issue with translations. It's like, yeah, if I really want to read Don Quixote, I really should probably read it in the original Spanish. Yeah, that's not going to happen. That's my Spanish is rusty as hell.
For readers that come to you, Rich, for the first time, you have a lot to offer. We've kind of touched on your characters and your stories already, but can you kind of just outline for a reader as they come to your site and they come see your books in person, kind of the different series you have at the moment that readers can fall in love, and just give us kind of so we can name them and kind of put everything together for somebody listening as well, so they know exactly kind of what's out there for them.
Sure. If you go to my website, the homepage pretty much breaks things down by by genre or by type of thing you might want to read. So there's novels, there's a novel, science fiction. No, there's novels, short stories. There's one novella, but there's a second novella coming. That draft is currently sitting and percolating and marinating, and I'm going to get back to it to start the revision process soon. There's poetry. I also have some audiobooks. The audiobooks are only on the short stories at the moment. So the novels are all fantasy novels.
Okay.
That's basically what I write. I started a science fiction novel, and I finally got a plot that I really like. This is how hard I am on science fiction. I finally got one that I really like, but I found that my passion is more for I had more ideas on the fantasy side, even though it's all speculative fiction under that broad umbrella. I found I'm drawn more to the fantasy side. So I said, okay, I'm going to put that away. I'm going to put the science fiction thing away for a little bit, and I need to get these other ideas out, because when I have an idea in my head, I have to get it out. Otherwise, it just starts to piss me off. And then
that's good motivation.
So I have fantasy novels I have to get out. The short stories are in a variety of genres. There's a fantasy series collection. There's a science fiction collection. There's a suspense thriller collection. There's a more horror, bizarre, Twilight Zone kind of thing. There's a book of fables and fiction, which is shorter fable-like, although it's not exclusively that. And then I have one that's a retelling of stories that I was reading at the time, which is the last one, Double Dose of Daring Do is what I called it, because I was struggling for a title. My apologies. But it's Double Dose because it's like a tale retold. There's a retelling of Red Riding Hood and a couple of Nathaniel Hawthorne stories I was reading at the time. I retold some of his stuff and a few other things that I had hanging around, so I could get out another collection of short stories. The poetry I've got 4 collections. The 5th one is just about to come out. I just finished editing it this morning, and now it's going into production so that I can format it and get it up on Amazon and get myself copies.
Yeah.
And then I have some nonfiction on top of everything else, which breaks down into a series of writer guides. There are 3 now.
Nice.
Okay. Some of them cover the things we've talked about here. At the beginning, your first questions were, I was drawing from those books specifically.
Nice. Good. Okay. There you go.
And then I have a collection of a series of books on comic book superheroes, because comic books are a passion of mine ever since I was a boy. I'm just and so is history, and so I'm just marrying the two of those together to say, okay, here's a timeline of the superheroes, and here's what they're all about. I started back in the 1930s, with the first ones that came out, and I'm doing 1983 at the moment. I'd have no shortage of material to talk about in those books, because 2026, and I've still got another 40 years to go before I catch up to the modern day. I'm going, no, there's a lot to do particularly once you hit the 80s, there's a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah.
To write about. There's a lot of stuff, because the industry found its footing with independent comic stores miniseries, direct sales. It found a footing that has been carrying it forward ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
Nice.
so that's mostly what you'll find when you go to my website. Those are the big categories, I think.
Any of those categories you think would be a good starting point for a new reader coming into your world, Rich? That you would say, hey, if you're brand new here, I know you have as a reader, you probably have things that you like to read, but I would suggest you start with my short stories, for example. As a brand new person in my world, is there something that you would
Yeah.
suggest?
Well, short stories would be one because they're short.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
really want to do a longer thing and you want to try, you're not sure you want to be on the hook for eight fantasy novels, which is my fantasy series. I have
Yeah.
some standalone fantasy books that they could read.
Yeah.
See if you like the way I tell a story. For example, Blessed Lady is set in the same land, play location as the fantasy series, but it just takes place after the series. And then the other fantasy novel, Aaron Wind, is set more or less in the same world, shares some of the mythology, which you'll notice if you read everything, you'll figure that out. But he's in a slightly different location and has no bearing on. Okay, it's also a lighter story, but you have to tolerate, oh, they kiss, there's romance, it's that kind of thing. It's that line from Princess Bride of, oh,
Yeah.
there's
Oh, no.
kissing.
It's not a
This
kissing
is
book,
this a
is it?
kissing story? And the
Oh,
answer is
no.
yes. There's it was meant to be a fantasy romance. Yeah, I love the Princess Bride,
Yeah, me too.
and you have to be able to put it. But there's going to be, but love as a theme shows up in all my stuff because it's a part of life. If I reflect life, then I reflect the things that are in life, and love is part of that. And
Right.
all of my characters end up with in some sort of relationship somewhere, or struggle with it. In Blessed Lady, it's not so straightforward. It's not so straightforward, but there are relationships, and so it's not necessarily love, but it's relationships. You can't avoid that when you have characters interacting. There are relationships there. You have to explore those.
Yeah.
But that's again why psychology is kind of a big deal. If there are terms of endearment, you have to know
Yes.
what they are.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot like for as a listener, and you go to Rich's website, you can be like, "Wow, there's a lot here from Rich." And it sounds like Rich, you're not going to stop at any time. You are the definition of my show title, living the
Oh,
next
okay.
chapter. Right? You're doing this all the time.
All the time.
Like, right?
Yep, yep.
Wow.
I retired now, so this is I devote my entire energies to this, aside from the various chores I have to do around here, just to keep things going. But mostly, this is where I'm focusing most of my energy on. I don't know where it's going to end or
Hmm.
when, so there's going to be a lot more stuff coming, and I'm just happy to get on with it. But I understand the overwhelming part is that because I've done events where I put out everything, and I think I've realized recently that I've overwhelmed people who come to my table, and I'm going, I think I have to stop doing that. I
Hmm.
have to sort of like figure out what's going to sell at this particular event, so I only put out a smaller piece,
Yeah.
so I don't overwhelm the person because they have too many choices, and it's like the arcade machine that is trying to deal with the fact that you're hitting it, and eventually it just goes tilt.
Yeah.
It's like
Right.
that, and I'm going,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So I'm going to be experimenting with that. I have an event a week from Saturday at a library where I'm only putting out my short stories and maybe my poetry, and even that's still a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's the smaller books,
Yeah.
so that mostly because the bigger novels around here are in Barnes and Noble on consignment. They can easily go, across a couple towns over and go to the bookstore and buy them from there if they really want to. And I'll
Yeah.
be sure I let people know that. Oh, by the way, novels are available elsewhere, and I don't need to compete with what I'm doing in that bookstore. But yeah, I got a lot of stuff, which means if you find something you like, personally, I like to have an author that has done a lot of stuff because
Yeah.
once I find them, I mine it.
Yo, yeah, exactly.
And so I'm trying to be that for others, so that
Nice.
if you find something that you like, and you might not like everything. I realize that poetry is an acquired taste, for example, but there's poetry in the fantasy series because I was, taking a page out of Tolkien.
Yep.
I kind of like the fact that, because at the time that's how people told
Yeah.
told stories. It was in
Right.
rhyme, it was, and legends and mythologies are captured that way. If you like, just generally what I'm doing, then I think I can, you can camp out here for a while and be busy for a while. Unless you're like I have a friend of mine who is such an avid reader. He goes through books faster than anybody I've ever seen. If you're like him, then I won't be able to keep you busy for long because I don't have that much. But if you're like most of us and you maybe read a couple books a year, all right, then I have enough to keep you busy for
Yeah.
a couple of years.
Yeah.
At the moment, then I'm writing more, as I say, and I'm writing them as fast as I can, which that takes time.
That's
Last year I
good.
put out a couple. I put out about 6 books, but that's because one book was at the publisher and was waiting, so that one was overdue. I put out one new novel, one collection of short stories, one collection of poetry. I think that was about it. Yeah, I don't expect to have that repeat. That's
Yeah.
that's that's a lot. I'm putting out a book of poetry now. I might get the novella done this year. I might get the novel that I'm currently revising that I was talking about earlier, where I'm going to go back and fix that beginning. That might also go out this year if I'm lucky, and that'll probably be it. And I have something in line after that because I've had another idea about, oh, this is an interesting idea about what might happen in a fantasy world if, and I can't tell you what the if is because that
Mm.
would spoil it.
Right.
But it's an idea that I want to explore. So as fast as I can get my current work done, I'm going to be moving over to that because yeah, the ideas keep coming and they hit me, and I'm going, all right,
Let's go.
I have nothing else now to distract me, which is it's very liberating.
Yeah.
Okay, because when you're forced to deal with the various fires that happen at the job I used to have, then I have to deal with those things. I don't have that
Yeah.
anymore. I retired. I
Right.
said, okay, great. So I devote all my energies to my one passion, and we'll see what happens. So stay tuned. We'll see what
Excellent.
we're going.
So, Rich, tell everybody about your website as well, so people can come and follow you there and
Okay.
see all this amazing stuff that you have.
Yeah,
We've been talking about.
my website
Yeah.
is my last name, Feitelberg.net. Type that in, and it should pop right up. I've had the site for years.
Yeah.
It's gone through a number of different revisions. This is its current iteration. Not sure if it's the way I'm going to keep it. I've been looking at ads for. You should have an author website recently just to see what they would do different from what I've done, and I'm going. And the last one I looked at, I'm going. You've only shown your sample only shows the site if you only have one book. That's not going to work for me. I have
No.
many books.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with all of the categories that I have?
Yeah.
And I said, well, I can't use those people to buy because if I can find somebody to maybe make it more visually interesting, I might do that. I used to have all the books up on the homepage, and I realized I think that's too much. That's getting back to your comment about being overwhelmed. I said,
Yeah.
no, let's keep it short and simple. Let me tell them what it is I have in general terms, just in text. They
Yeah.
can pick one and see the books.
Yeah.
I think that works better.
Yeah.
I don't know if it
Yeah.
works better. If
Well,
anybody who's listening wants to send me a comment on that and let me know what they think, that's fine. I'm always happy to listen. I'm responsible for my own website because I used to code HTML pages in a past life. It's one of the scars I have from my past life. I can make changes and make it more palatable, but I have all kinds of stuff up there. I have you'll see there are the pictures of the books, descriptions of the books, links to where you can buy them, so I don't have to deal with the money part.
yeah.
Sample chapters, sample poetry, sample chapters for the novels, and I think sample stories out of the short story collections. I think are up there. All kinds of stuff, plus links to a blog that I used to run for the people who are trying to figure out how to write. You might want to look at my old blog from 2010, which talks about my struggles at that time when I was getting started. If that might help.
Nice.
Yeah, that's another thing I used to do is back when I wasn't sure what I was doing, I used to read biographies of other writers and how they got into writing. So I know all about. And some of these people have written books on writing, like Bradbury and Stephen King, which describe their journey into writing. But I also, have read about how Dickens got started because he
Yeah.
didn't start out to be a writer; he started out to be an actor. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. how did he end up, doing what he's doing? Just to get some clues as to see if I could find clues about how I could get to where I wanted to be. I saw a very nice series that was it National Geographic? Yeah, I think it was National Geographic. Their cable channel. They have a Genius series, and they did a series on Picasso. And when I watched that, because I wanted to see if there were any things about if there were any hints on from painting that would apply to writing,
Right.
because they're both art forms, and it's like, well, what did he do to get going? Because
Yeah.
struggling painters have many of the same issues, is they have to get their work seen
Yeah.
and people interested in their work, and it's far more subjective, in my opinion, than writing is, because you have to look at the picture and either you like it or you don't like it.
Yeah.
He invents cubism. People really like that or not like that. I don't.
Right.
And he had a patron who loved it and bought a lot of his work. So fine, writing is a bit more straightforward, I think, but everybody's different. Some people will
Yeah.
probably like the way I write. Some people won't. Some people will like my story. Some people won't. That's fine. I'm not offended. Not every book, as I just said to somebody recently, not every book is intended for every reader.
Right. Right.
Please bear that in mind, you people starting. Not every
Yeah.
book. You've got to find your audience. I have some of my audience, but I'm sure there are more people out there. So that's why I'm here talking to you. We're trying to find more people out there who will come and say, "Oh yeah, I get this,"
Yeah.
and will be willing to take a ride with me.
Beautiful. I love it, Rich. Thank you for spending time with us and walking us through this. I love your approach. I love your heart for authors as well. And some great suggestions and some feedback for authors throughout our conversation today. I really think that's
Yep.
going to be inspiring for them. So thank you for doing this.
I've tried to mentor people as I've encountered them, because my struggle I thought was particularly hard, and I really don't want other people to have to go through all of that.
Yeah.
And I feel that pain. I know that pain. I have a fair amount of compassion for the people who are struggling. The people, and I should say this too, people who are listening, if you go to my website, you should be able to find my email address up there.
Yep.
Write to me if you have questions. That's fine. I'll be more than happy to help and mentor new people through whatever difficulties they're having, because everyone's voice matters.
Right.
It's a huge chorus. It'll be more competition for me, but that's not the point. Every voice is important. Everyone has a unique perspective.
Yeah.
That's really the world we're living in these days, and it's true. Let's hear what you have to say. Is what I would say to the novice writers. Like, let's hear what you have to say. If there's an audience, people will find you. They may not
Right.
find you in your lifetime. That's the part I tend to leave out. They may not find you in your lifetime, but they'll find you. Yeah.
That's a great offer for you as you listen and you're like, I'd love to talk to Rich. I'd love to do that. He just gave you the keys to the kingdom right there. Go reach out to him. I'm sure he'd love to have time with you. So that's really very generous of you, Rich.
Thank you.
Excellent. Everyone, all information is always in the show notes. I'll have a link to Rich's website. I'm asking a favor of you as a listener and as a reader, when, not if, but when you read Rich's books, that you tell somebody about Rich and you leave a great review as well, because I know Rich would love to hear your thoughts, and also the community would love to hear your thoughts about Rich's books. And that'll bring more people into his world as well.
Bless you for saying that, Dave. Because yes, it's the one thing that I tend not to get is reviews. But most people don't leave. If they read it, they don't review it.
Right.
I'm certainly guilty of that. If I don't tend to give reviews of the various things I consume, both in terms of software and applications and books and so on. I tend not to. I only rarely leave let's say, a Yelp review after going to a place multiple times to make sure I have an accurate sense of the place.
Yeah.
Because one visit won't be enough.
Right.
So I understand, and the word of mouth thing is critical. I am heavily reliant on word of mouth. That if you like my stuff, even if you don't review it, recommend it to other people. If you're in a book club, recommend it to the book club. I would love that. Then I have a bunch of people in the book club reading my stuff. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Whatever you can do, because, and this is true of all local writers, authors, and independent authors, is we're basically one man, one person organization struggling to do the best we can in a vast sea of content, and the only thing we can hope for is that somebody will send up a signal flare
Yeah.
and point the way for others. Otherwise, we're like that scene in Titanic where she's adrift and the rescue boat is there and they don't see her until she blows the whistle. I need
Right.
somebody to start blowing the whistle.
Nice. That's a good visual. I like that. It's amazing. Everyone, yeah.
That scene is a metaphor
Yeah.
for what I go through on a regular basis. Is that yes, I'm lost in a cold, cruel sea, and I could actually freeze to death if I'm not careful, and I really need some help, guys.
I love it. Everyone go support Rich. And again, the reviews are great and word of mouth, awesome. I love that. I think that's our commitment back to our authors, is we can give our feedback. We bought the book. Rich knows we love him. Well, he'd like to hear from you as well. So please do that. Rich, again, thank you so much for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. This has been awesome. Yeah, pleasure to talk with you. We had some laughs. That's always a good thing. And maybe if things go well, I'll come back and give you an update sometime in the future.
We'll always keep the door open for you, Rich. Thank you so much for doing this.
Okay, cool. Thank you
Excellent.
so much.
Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. Glad to have you here. I just want to let you know that you can always find out what we're doing live in the moment by going to our YouTube channel. Head over to livingthenextchapter.com. There'll be a link right there. Head over to our YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all the things that all the YouTubers love to say. And in our YouTube channel, a couple things. You're going to get advanced listens. You're going to get the episodes that we're working on in real time. So we record and post daily on our YouTube channel. I'd love for you to give us a follow over there. As well, we're making playlists. We have over 500 episodes. So finding the right episode for you, we're trying to group things into playlists. So if you like children's books, if you like business, you like historical fiction, we're grouping our authors together to make it a little easier for you to find your favorite next author. So head over to livingthenextchapter.com. And again, I'd love to hear from you. Hearing from the listeners of the show is great. And I just want to say thank you for being a part of the podcast family. And I look forward to having you back for the next episode. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate your time and your listen. Take care.